Hello guys! In this video, you'll find out who the richest MMA fighters in history are. The fortunes of these fighters have long surpassed millions of dollars. All this data is official, which means their actual wealth could be even higher. The net worth of the #1 fighter will amaze you. 10th place, Michael Bisping. For a long time, Bisping carried the banner for British MMA, and it's hard to argue he didn't succeed. The Count landed in the UFC after a standout victory on the 3rd season of The Ultimate Fighter. By defeating Josh Haynes in the finale, he took home $20,000. At the time, that purse was more than Haynes had earned in his entire life. Ultimately, Bisping spent 11 and a half years in the promotion, won 20 fights, and at the tail end of his fighting journey, he finally became champion. Bisping hit his biggest jackpot in his second-to-last fight, defending his title against the returning St-Pierre. Despite the loss, Michael became $500,000 richer and earned substantial pay-per-view sales commissions. These amounted to approximately $2,650,000. From guaranteed payouts alone, Bisping earned $7,135,000 in the UFC. And if you add the percentage from pay-per-view sales, his total earnings slightly exceed $10 million. And to think, many called him a perennial loser. 9th place, Alistair Overeem. It's hard to believe, but the Dutchman has been fighting at the highest level for over 20 years. However, he only started earning truly star-level paydays after joining the UFC. Overeem signed a deal with the UFC right in the middle of the hyped Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix. After defeating Fabricio Werdum, he advanced to the semifinals, but never appeared in the cage, citing that he wouldn't have enough time to prepare. A few months later, he received $386,000, of which $121,000 was a win bonus. On top of that, the Dutchman received an additional $500,000 from pay-per-view sales. As a result, the fight against Brock Lesnar remains the most profitable of Overeem's career. For his title fight against Miocic, he earned $850,000. And for his last 5 fights, he made $400,000 each, without a win bonus. Overeem's total career earnings in the UFC amounted to about $10.5 million. It seems his escape from Strikeforce fully paid off. 8th place, Daniel Cormier. Once upon a time, DC fought in Strikeforce challengers, earning $500 a fight. A few years later, thanks to Alistair Overeem's withdrawal, he found himself in the Heavyweight Grand Prix and surprisingly won it. Riding the wave of this success, he came to the UFC, defeated Frank Mir in his debut, and received $126,000. Less than 2 years later, Cormier fought for the title against John Jones, and his fight agreement included a guaranteed $90,000, plus another $90,000 in case of a victory. DC's largest disclosed purse to date is the $1 million he earned for the rematch with Jones. From fixed purses alone, in the UFC, Cormier added $6,200,000 to his bank account. He headlined 9 numbered events and helped the company sell over 4.5 million PPV buys. This brought him another estimated $9 million. Thus, in the UFC, DC earned $15.2 million, making him number 8 on our list. 7th place, Ronda Rousey. Once, Ronda became the driving force of the women's roster in the UFC and made Dana White forget his words that women would never fight in his company. For her last fight in Strikeforce, Ronda earned $40,000, which was already astronomical money for women's MMA at the time. But in the UFC, she climbed much higher. In just her second fight, she collected $250,000 for the night, $50K for showing up, $50K for the win, plus bonuses for fight of the night and submission of the night, which were $75,000 each back then. For her last fight against Amanda Nunes, Rousey earned a fixed $3 million, and it's quite possible this record for women's fights will stand for many years to come. Ronda's total guaranteed earnings in the UFC, including all bonuses and Reebok payouts, amounted to $4,400,000. She headlined 6 numbered events that sold over 4.5 million pay-per-view buys, which secured her another $14 million. It turns out that Ronda's total earnings in the world's largest promotion is $18,800,000. Sixth place, Jon Jones. In August 2008, a 21-year-old Jon Jones took a UFC fight on short notice, signed a 4-fight contract, and became the youngest fighter on the roster at the time. For his debut against Andre Gusmal, he received only $12,000. But for his first title fight, he earned $140,000, half of which was a win bonus. Since his first fight against Cormier, his purse has consistently been $500,000. This is the fixed amount he still receives for every fight. Interestingly, in the rematch with DC, Jones received half as much as his opponent. According to official data, his UFC fights have brought Jones $7,230,000. And for the 12 numbered events he headlined as champion, the total number of pay-per-view buys was 6.7 million. This translates to just over $16 million in additional income. Jones' total earnings during his time in the UFC is $23,312,000. In one interview, Jones stated that for 9 years, he's been earning $2 million per fight, and now in his own words, he makes more than 5 for every walk to the octagon. And that sounds about right. Fifth place, Anderson Silva. The famous Spider signed with the UFC while being the champion of the prestigious Cage Rage organization, so he received a solid $36,000 plus a knockout of the night bonus right from his debut. 5 fights later, his purse grew to $200,000, and before the ill-fated bout against Weidman, he signed an insane 10-fight contract. Under the terms of this agreement, each of Silva's appearances earned him a guaranteed $600,000, with an additional bonus of $200,000 for a win. Therefore, from guaranteed payouts alone, he earned over $9 million in the UFC. Furthermore, he headlined a record 48 numbered events and sold 8.7 million pay-per-view buys. This enriched him by another approximately $21.5 million. Thus, Anderson's total earnings in the UFC is about $30,700,000. That should be enough money not only for his children and grandchildren, but even his great-grandchildren. Fourth place, Brock Lesnar. Throughout his sports career, Brock Lesnar was destined for success. He won the NCAA Division I Wrestling Championship, then became a WWE champion, and decided to try his hand at MMA. And after just 4 fights, he became the UFC champion. For his debut against Frank Mir, he received $250,000, and a win would have brought him $450,000. For the rematch, Brock came with a new contract, a guaranteed $400,000. For his last fight against Mark Hunt, Lesnar took home $2.5 million. This was the guaranteed payout announced by the media, but according to some published documents, Lesnar earned $8 million for that fight. The same documents state that no one in the UFC had ever received such a sum for a fight before, which is why the promotion desperately wanted to hide it from the rest of the roster. Lesnar fought in the octagon only 8 times, yet his fixed purses brought him a total of $5,375,000. UFC 100, which he headlined in 2009, set a pay-per-view record of 1.3 million buys. It wasn't broken until 7 years later. Lesnar's total earnings, including PPV, by the most conservative estimates, amounted to $33,705,000. That's a little over $4 million for every walk to the octagon. Few could compete with Brock in terms of productivity. Third place, Georges St-Pierre. The senior vice president of Under Armour called him the Michael Jordan of MMA. And in 2011, Dana White admitted that St-Pierre was the biggest box office star in mixed martial arts. For his first fight in the UFC, he earned only $6,000. After another victory, he got a shot at the vacant title with Matt Hughes and lost, receiving only $9,000. 13 years later, he raked in $2.5 million, a record purse in his career, not counting his percentage of pay-per-view sales. Some reputable sources indicate that St-Pierre had a 10% share of PPV revenue. In total, the events he headlined gathered 9,150,000 paid subscriptions. This means that from PPV alone, the Canadian earned approximately $42 million. Another clear example of why it's so important for a fighter to be able to sell their fights. Against this backdrop, even the $7 million the Canadian received in fixed purses pales in comparison. Thus, St-Pierre's total income in the UFC is $49 million. Second place, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib Nurmagomedov debuted in the UFC in January 2012, earning $16,000 for his victory over Kamal Shaloris. In November 2016, at UFC 205, he fought on the same card as Conor McGregor for the first time. And while the Irishman was collecting $3 million against Alvarez, Khabib received a modest $57,000 for submitting Michael Johnson. 2 years later, they faced each other, and this fight became the highest-grossing fight in the history of mixed martial arts. Khabib's guaranteed purse was $2 million. He earned another $7.5 million as a bonus from pay-per-view sales. For his fights against Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, Khabib received a fixed purse of $6 million. According to some sources, including pay-per-view sales, his total earnings for these fights exceeded $50 million. Thus, over his UFC career, Khabib earned at least $60 million. In 2019, he topped the Forbes list of 40 Russian stars in show business and sports. Khabib's income for 2018 was $11.5 million, but this figure includes more than just his fight earnings. First place, Conor McGregor. The Irishman debuted in the UFC in April 2013. At that time, his contract paid him only $16,000. With the Knockout of the Night bonus, this amount increased to $76,000. What gives this event a special charm is the fact that a few days before the tournament, Conor collected his last unemployment check for 188 euros. Everything that happened next can be described with only one word: revolution. He became the first fighter in history whose guaranteed purse for a fight exceeded $1 million. And starting from his rematch with Diaz, he was already getting 3. His walk to the octagon against Dustin Poirier brought him a record fixed purse of $5 million. From these purses alone, as well as numerous bonuses for best fights, knockouts, and performances of the night, he earned $20,100,000 in the UFC. But the Irishman's main advantage over everyone else is that people pay to watch him. McGregor headlined 8 numbered events, averaging over 1.4 million PPV buys. 7 of the 9 best-selling cards in UFC history featured Conor. The notorious Irishman sold 11,292,000 pay-per-view buys, which, with a 7% share, secured him around $52 million. And according to Forbes experts, McGregor's total earnings from the Poirier fight, including PPV, were $22 million. And here is the perfect time to remind you that these calculations do not include signing bonuses, motivational premiums, or additional payments from the company, which Conor surely has in abundance. For example, it is known that after his victory over Jose Aldo, he received an additional $2 million as a so-called discretionary bonus, which is paid by the organization at its own discretion and is not accounted for anywhere. Even without factoring in these nuances, Conor's total income in the UFC is a minimum of $87 million, and this doesn't include the record-breaking purse from his boxing match against Floyd Mayweather. What do you think? Who has the potential to make it into this top list in the near future? Write your thoughts in the comments, and keep watching our videos.